a confirmation that our economy shrank by 0.2% in the third quarter of the year. You know, of course, how difficult our economic situation is. Matthew Parks is the spokesperson for COSATU. Matthew, good afternoon to you. So our economy shrank by just a small amount, but it does mean it's not growing. It does mean people will lose jobs. We have intense load shedding. We have Transnet, which is failing. Who do you hold responsible for the state we're in, Matthew?
Yeah, it is quite depressing. As if we don't have a shortage of depressing news. Look, to be honest with you, we can put Transnet right at the front of the queue of people to blame and to hold accountable. Eskom is obviously very close up there, and of course you've got other delinquents too, like PRASA, like some of the other SOEs, some of our very dysfunctional municipalities, especially in rural areas. Of course, you have government departments which themselves are hardly poster boys for efficiency in many instances. Ultimately, the responsibility has to lie with government, because issues like Transnet, like Eskom, like PRASA disrupts the economy, makes it very difficult for other businesses to operate. So you look at the stats right now, it points to Transnet, because it points to a 0.2% decrease in the GDP, which might seem small, but the mining industry decrease is about 2.2%. Agriculture is about a whopping 19%. So that's scary stats. And it's scary because there's not just some theoretical discussion. In the medium-term budget statement of Parliament last month, there was a revenue shortfall of 56 billion rand, which then has a huge impact and a very negative impact upon other public services in terms of delivering to the poor, etc. And that revenue shortfall is because of Transnet. 55% of it was from the mining industry and the rest from agriculture and manufacturing. So right now, if we want to turn things around, we have to fix Transnet. We've got to fix Eskom. And of course, other issues like other SOEs, PRASA, municipalities, corruption, crime, etc. But right now, we feel that government's not moving with speed. We don't have the luxury of 2 years to fix Transnet. We maybe have barely a few weeks, let alone 2 months.
And Matthew, I mean, one of the strange things about all of this has been there's been a consistent promise from the President of a social pact involving you as organised labour, involving business and government. Is there any progress on that at all? I mean, I know there are bodies where business and government meet. I know there's NADLAC. I see nothing about a social pact.
Yeah. So look, okay, on a positive note, there are different elements of a social compact in different forums, which have some successes. So you have in the master plans, like the retail sector, a very good social compact between the retailers, the clothing industry, unions and government to increase locally produced clothes on our big retailers. That's good. During COVID-19, we had a very good social compact between government, business and labor to roll out 64 billion rand from the UIF to help 5.7 million workers. The vaccination campaign at different workplaces was really quite successful, actually better than those in the West, for example. But in terms of the broader social compact the President called for in SONA last year, no, it hasn't happened. We had strangely actually come to a draft agreement in September last year at NADLAC, and then government just disappeared. And every now and then they would call us and say, no, let's discuss, etc. It seemed that maybe we had suggested to them, but look, we don't need to be over ambitious. Let's just take 2 or 3 easy to fix things. Let's fix, for example, the unemployment insurance fund. That's going to benefit workers and it's going to benefit businesses. It's a relatively simple thing to fix. Let's fix, for example, the compensation of injury on duty fund. Simple IT issue, but it has a huge impact upon workers. We could fix the CCMA, which will benefit labor market stability in the workplaces and SMEs and workers, etc. But government, I think at times also has a bit of a short attention span. And unfortunately, when we had hoped, not just last year, but in fact we had said as COSATU in 2019 in October, we need a much more broader social compact to address our serious issues, from Eskom to Transnet to PRASA to our SOEs to tax collection to corruption, growing the economy. And government will say, yes, we agree with you, then they will disappear. So it's a real pity, because most of our issues, you would find there's consensus between government, business, labor, and society at large. We've got to make sure our trains run on time. We've got to make sure we have reliable and affordable electricity. But you just find at times a lack of political will and focus from colleagues in government.
And Matthew, I mean, for a lot of people, the solution to the problem of Transnet is privatization. We see there'll be a private partner at Pier 2, the biggest part of the busiest port in Durban. We see, of course, the private sector playing a bigger role in Eskom. COSATU generally, most unions around the world don't like privatization. I think some people feel there's no other option.
Yeah. Look, I think for us right now is we have a crisis of today and tomorrow. Other issues will take much longer to discuss. Obviously, as trade unions will never support privatization because they fear, will it lead to retrenchments? Will it lead to salary cuts? Will it lead to essential public goods becoming unaffordable for the poor, for SMEs, etc. But we've got to fix the trains tomorrow. So you're not going to have a privatization tomorrow. So that's another debate for another day. Obviously, our position is clear, but we need to arrest the queues right now in the ports. And at times, some of the things are very simple things like buying cranes. There's no logic for why we couldn't have bought cranes for the different harbors over the years. There's no reason why we couldn't invest in the skills training of the staff over the years. Some of the stuff is basic, like appointing competent permanent management, deploying law enforcement to deal with the issues of corruption, of cable theft, etc., investing in infrastructure. But I think the point is, for us, all of these SOEs were well-run, internationally respected institutions until a decade ago. We've got to fix them. It means we've got to fix the difficult things. But, not all is doom and gloom. There is a value in investing in public services. So, for example, if we look at the South African Revenue Service, over the past 2-3 years, we've seen a significant turnaround because they invested in appointing competent management. They invested in hiring additional staff and IT capacity. And we've seen a real positive turnaround in SARS, which has enabled SARS to increase tax collection from 61 to 64%. That's an additional 60 billion rand. So I think for us, if we do the basics right, you can fix things.
Matthew Parks, thank you very much indeed, the spokesperson for the Congress of South African Trade Unions.